Coming up on the newscast tonight, the top negotiators of Pyongyang and Washington held talks in Vietnam, but they are yet to call it a day as they will continue to fine-tune details of the Hanoi summit declaration. Focal points likely will include shutdown of key nuclear complex and sanctions relief. President Moon Jae-in and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi hold a meeting at the nation's top office today. The two leaders signed multiple MOUs and declared their resolution to strengthen bilateral ties, which involves greater coordination in various sectors. Seoul's government plans to dismantle 3 weirs created during the controversial 4 major rivers restoration project. This comes after inspections clearly reveal issues with the structure's economic efficiency and safety. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome, I'm Daniel Choi. Top nuke envoys of North Korea and the U.S. continue talks in Hanoi to hammer out the details of their leaders' summit declaration. While this is going on, a senior American official highlighted bold steps must be taken quickly on the regime's denuclearization. Woo Jung-hee has our top story.
Talks continue between North Korea and the U.S. and Vietnam to fine-tune the details of the Hanoi summit declaration. At 9 a.m. Friday morning, North Korea's Special Representative for U.S. Affairs Kim Hyuk-chol went to the Hotel du Parc Hanoi, where U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun is staying. He was accompanied by 2 other North Korean delegates, Kim Sung-hye, who heads the United Front Department Strategy Office, and Choi Kang-il, the Acting Director General for the Foreign Ministry's Department on North American Affairs. The team left the venue at 2:30 in the afternoon. And during these hours, Kim Sung-hye was seen leaving and returning to the hotel a few times, possibly to report to Pyongyang about the deals. Kim and Biegun had met for over 4 hours at the same hotel the day before. The core talking point is believed to be the verified shutdown of the North's Yongin nuclear complex, the key site where it produces plutonium and uranium for nuclear weapons. In return, the U.S. is likely to suggest exchanging liaison offices, formally ending the Korean War, and easing sanctions on the regime. The two sides are expected to continue meeting until the very last minute. And Seoul's nuclear envoy, Lee Do-hoon, could also be seeing Biegun time to time, as he arrived in Hanoi on Friday as well. While the final coordination is tight, Washington is urging Pyongyang to take big and bold denuclearization measures. A senior U.S. government official told reporters on Thursday that for North Korea and the U.S., it is crucial to move quickly with, quote, very big bites, and should the regime make the right choice, it'll get all the necessary incentives. He said Washington is still not sure if Pyongyang has really chosen to denuclearize, but is engaged in the ongoing talks because there is a possibility. The immediate priority for now, says the official, is to freeze all of North Korea's weapons of mass destruction and missile programs. The regime will also need to provide a full inventory of its nuclear arsenal, quote, well before the end of the denuclearization process. Woo Jung-hee, Arirang News.
The two sides are also reportedly touching on specifics for details on further consultation on the repatriation of U.S. war remains. According to a report by Radio Free Asia, citing Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency spokesperson Charles Pritchard, though the final date and place for the bilateral negotiations is not decided yet, the agency updates the White House on progress daily. The return of the remains of American troops killed during the Korean War is expected to be included as one of the key issues during next week's summit. North Korea repatriated 55 sets of remains last August, following the maiden Kim-Trump meeting last June in Singapore, but no such gesture has been made since. Some experts voice skepticism about the Hanoi summit, while others remain optimistic. The 38 North's Joel Witt says the most important thing is to have realistic expectations for what could happen. At a seminar held here in the nation today, the director of the U.S.-based North Korea monitoring website emphasized people should take a step back when assessing the second Kim-Trump meeting and think about how things were before the whole process started.
And I notice a number of comments that unless this particular thing happens at the summit, the process is over. And I think we need to be careful about that.
But also highlighted that we need to remember the decades of hostility between Pyongyang and Washington, and that something cannot be ended overnight. Staying with the hotly anticipated summit, the spotlight mostly falls on the two leaders, but they do have a whole team behind them. Kan Young-woo introduces to us the key role players.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump will surely be the faces of the upcoming Hanoi summit, grabbing all the limelight. But it's their respective support teams that have led and will continue to hold working-level talks in the run-up to the summit. Similar to the Singapore summit last June, Vice Chairman of the Workers' Party of Korea Kim Yong-chol and U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will serve as the top advisors for Kim Jong-un and President Trump, respectively. North Korea's Minister of Foreign Affairs Lee Yong-ho and U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton will also again play a key role at the Hanoi summit. But in regards to pre-summit negotiations, there have been personnel changes on both sides. North Korea's former ambassador to Spain, Kim Hyok-chol, has replaced the regime's vice foreign minister, Choi Sun-hee. U.S. Special Representative for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, has also taken over the role served by the U.S. ambassador to the Philippines, Sung Kim, in the run-up to the first summit. Photos suggest Kim Hyok-chol and Biegun are the negotiation channels that directly report to their respective leaders. Both Kim and Biegun have met each other's leaders face-to-face, indicating their messages have been clearly exchanged and understood. With no experience in leading North Korea-U.S. negotiations, the pair are under pressure to break out of the unfruitful patterns seen over the past decades. The world will have to wait to see what kind of agreement comes out of the Hanoi summit, but the outcome could determine whether the pairing of Kim Hyok-chol and Stephen Biegun will still be in place if President Trump and Kim Jong-un meet for a third time in the future. Kan Young-woo, Arirang News.
June 12, 2018, Singapore. The leaders of North Korea and the U.S. agreed to 4 points aimed at improving their historically strained relationship. So how much of the deal has been carried out since? Here's Lee Ji-won with an in-depth analysis.
The Sentosa Agreement consists of 4 pillars, from establishing new North Korea-U.S. relations to Pyongyang returning the remains of U.S. soldiers from the Korean War. Last July, the North returned 55 sets of remains of U.S. soldiers killed in the Korean War. Both Seoul and Washington also ceased or downsized the number of annual joint military exercises. The U.S. also announced a review of its North Korea policy in order to send humanitarian aid to the regime. But there were no major developments on building their new future and denuclearizing the peninsula. The North had dismantled the Punggye-ri nuclear test site and repatriated 3 detained Korean Americans, but these events took place prior to the Singapore summit in June. The problem is, going forward, each side feels they'd be giving too much, such as the North fully disclosing its nuclear program and shipping out fissile materials, and the U.S. signing a peace treaty or backing off sanctions.
They both urged the other side to take the steps first. The U.S. called for North Korea's concrete denuclearization, while Pyongyang demanded Washington's trust-building measures. With neither side budging, there wasn't much progress.
With the second Kim-Trump summit just a few days away, the experts said it is vital to reach an agreement on denuclearization in negotiations, as well as set a system.
Even if the two actually improve their bilateral ties, they wouldn't be stable as there are no foundations. They need to institutionalize their promises through ways like setting up a liaison office. Keeping a timeline would also be necessary to continuously push through their agendas and avoid groundless criticism.
With various reports already saying that setting up a liaison office and the returning of war remains are going to be topics in the agenda at the summit, there are hopes that Hanoi will pave the way for more concrete progress in achieving not only their individual and mutual goals, but also regional peace and stability. 이지원, 아리랑 뉴스.
The Four Major Rivers Restoration Project has been the subject of much controversy over the years. After conducting thorough inspections, the Environment Ministry proposed the deconstruction of 3 weirs created as part of that project for economic and safety reasons. Kim Dami has the latest.
A plan to remove 3 weirs that were constructed as a part of the Four Major Rivers Restoration Project has been proposed on Friday. According to the plan by Ministry of Environment's Inspection Committee, Sejong Weir on the Keumgang River and Juksan Weir on the Yeongsangang River will be completely deconstructed, along with the partial deconstruction of the Gongju Weir on the Keumgang River.
The main factors in deciding whether to remove or keep the weirs were economic efficiency and safety.
Through its analysis, the committee has concluded that maintenance costs for the Sejong Weir and Juksan Weir are relatively high, whereas removal of the weirs will instead improve the water quality. For instance, the maintenance costs after the deconstruction of Sejong Weir are 3 times lower. The Four Rivers Restoration Project, envisioned by former President Lee Myung-bak back in 2008, was reportedly designed to revitalize the country's 4 largest rivers, the Hangang, Nakdonggang, Keumgang, and Yeongsangang rivers. However, flaws in the $20 billion project, such as poor construction, have led to investigations and now the proposed deconstruction of some parts of the project. The final decision on the 3 weirs will be determined by the National Water Management Committee this June. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
The government is pushing to cut red tape so that a new semiconductor cluster can be built. Easing regulations would involve asking the Land Ministry to loosen the limit on the industrial zone size. Go Ryuni explains further.
Korea is one step closer to building a giant semiconductor cluster in the city of Yongin, around 50 kilometers south of Seoul. The Trade Ministry announced on Friday that it has asked the Land Ministry to see whether it can ease the limits on the size of industrial zones built in metropolitan areas, so that the semiconductor cluster can be built on that scale. This comes after a special purpose company set up to build semiconductor cluster sites submitted a letter of investment intent to the Yongin city government. It's big news for the chip industry because SK Hynix, the world's second biggest memory chip maker, announced on Thursday that if the Yongin site is confirmed, it will invest almost $107 billion to build 4 semiconductor manufacturing plants there after 2022. To get a positive answer from the Land Ministry, the Trade Ministry official laid out the benefits. First, the ministry said the site will create 17,000 new jobs. More importantly, officials estimate that more than 50 subcontractors will join the cluster, meaning more cooperation with SK Hynix and an increase in overall competitiveness in the field. But why is it so important at this point to help the chip industry? The South Korean government believes this is the right time for fresh investment because the semiconductor industry is facing challenges such as a fall in prices and lower than expected demand from data centers. It's especially important for Korea to maintain its competitiveness because chip shipments accounted for more than 20% of the country's overall export last year. 고르니, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in and the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, held a summit this morning. The duo vowed to strengthen their country's special strategic partnership through more concrete cooperation. Hwang Ho-jun has the highlights from that meeting.
Children waving flags, an inspection of the honor guard. A proper red carpet welcome for a leader the South Korean president calls a friend and a brother. President Moon Jae-in and his Indian counterpart, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, met Friday at the Blue House for about an hour. After that, they signed multiple MOUs and then held a joint press conference where the two leaders declared their resolution to strengthen their country's ties.
양국의 우호 협력 관계를 한 차원 더 높게 발전시키고 더 나아가 양국이 함께 아시아를 사람 중심의 평화와 번영의 공동체로 만들어 나가는 것입니다.
To promote human and cultural exchanges between the two countries, the Indian government has decided to extend the period of stay allowed for Korean citizens in India up to 3 years from the current 12 months. Seoul, on the other hand, is looking to open a new collective tourist visa program for Indian nationals. And to emphasize their historical ties, both countries will jointly issue a commemorative stamp of Hwanguk, the queen of the founding ruler of Korea's ancient Kaya kingdom, who is believed by many to have come from India. Regarding their economic partnership, President Moon and Prime Minister Modi noted that the two countries' trade volume reached an all-time high of $21.5 billion last year, and they agreed to continue to boost bilateral economic cooperation with the goal to reaching $50 billion in trade volume by 2030. To that end, the two leaders will work to quickly conclude negotiations on the Korea-India Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Also, bilateral collaboration can be expected in fields related to the Fourth Industrial Revolution, green energy, and even the space industry, while the two countries also encourage exchanges between each other's startups. Last but not least, President Moon and Prime Minister Modi pledged to work closely to establish peace and prosperity in the region, not just the Korean peninsula. They also decided to further promote strategic cooperation in national defense and the defense industry, while also reinforcing joint efforts to cope with transnational crimes such as terrorism. President Moon hosted a state luncheon afterwards in honor of the visiting Indian Prime Minister, the first world leader to make a state visit to South Korea so far this year. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Keeping our sights fixed on the South Korea-India partnership, greater cooperation in various sectors is sure to generate incredible synergy. Kim Hye-sung outlines some of the anticipated effects.
Strengthening economic ties and creating a win-win for both countries under Korea's new Southern policy and India's Look East policy. That's the goal agreed on Friday by President Moon Jae-in and Indian Prime Minister Modi. The new Southern policy pushed by the Moon administration since 2017 aims to expand Korea's ties with India and ASEAN countries and establish peace and prosperity in the Asia-Pacific. India has the world's second biggest population at 1.3 billion. It's also the world's sixth largest economy with an annual growth rate of 7%, meaning a huge export market for Korea. As for India, the Modi government has invested heavily in infrastructure under its Look East and Make in India policies. It aims to attract foreign investment and build India's manufacturing sector so that it makes up 25% of the country's GDP by 2022.
Korea can diversify its export market and reduce its reliance on the US and China. Korea's technological know-how, on the other hand, can help nurture India's manufacturing sector, creating synergy for both countries.
Bilateral trade between Korea and India hit $21.5 billion in 2018, up 26% from 2010. But India accounts for only 3% of Korea's total exports, far short of the 25% that goes to China, meaning there's a lot of room for growth.
India is the next China. It will soon be part of the so-called G3. But there's a lot of competition with China and Japan to enter the Indian market. To seize the opportunity, Korea and India need to strengthen their communication channels and engage in joint projects.
At the same time, experts say that two countries need to finalize the amendment to their bilateral comprehensive economic partnership agreement to make more Korean goods duty-free and to raise their competitiveness. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
Apple and Goldman Sachs are joining forces to launch a new credit card. The team-up's expected to provide various benefits for iPhone users. Sobobin sheds light on this collaboration.
U.S. tech giant Apple is teaming up with one of America's biggest banks, Goldman Sachs, to launch a new credit card this spring. According to the Wall Street Journal on Thursday, the credit card will be linked with features such as Apple Pay and Apple Wallet so that customers can easily track their rewards and manage their accounts through their iPhone. The card will use the MasterCard network, and card users will be able to receive 2% cashback on many of their purchases and possibly receive other rewards for purchasing Apple products. As Apple's iPhone sales have been falling, the firm is looking to boost its revenue in other ways and expand growth in its service businesses. And as for Goldman Sachs, As it is looking to expand its consumer business, this could be the chance to bring in millions of Apple users as it diversifies away from its original corporate and Wall Street clients.
This cooperation is a win-win situation for both companies, where Apple can develop a new revenue stream and Goldman Sachs can bring in Apple users to increase their consumer base.
The new credit card will be first tested by Apple and Goldman Sachs employees and then will be officially launched to the public later this year. 서보빈, Arirang News.
South Korea's main opposition Liberty Korea Party will begin early voting for its leadership race this weekend. Members will be able to cast their ballots using their mobile phones on Saturday or head to polling stations nationwide on Sunday. It's a three-way race between ex-Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn, former Seoul Mayor Oh Se-hoon, and two-term lawmaker Kim Jin-tae. After holding their final speech session on Friday, the candidates have one more TV debate scheduled for Saturday. Then they will likely spend their time campaigning up until Election Day, which is next Wednesday. The new chair, who would take the helm for the next 2 years, will be tasked with fostering unity among the conservatives and steering the party to victory in the 2020 general elections. Various local festivals played a key role in attracting foreign visitors to the country. Today, some of the standout events were recognized for their contributions. Lee Min-sun takes us to the Korea Festival Contents Awards.
The Korea Festival Contents Awards, now in its 7th year, recognizes and rewards the local festivals that have played an important role in the development of regional economies and the local tourism industry. According to the organizer of the award ceremony, last year 13 million foreign tourists visited Korea, pumping $1.3 billion into the economy, and this was partially thanks to local festivals. 33 awards were presented in 10 fields, including the quality of content, impact on tourism and the economy, traditional impact, and popularity. What attracted a lot of attention from foreign festival officials was the Asia's 3 Best Festivals Award. This year, Korea's Boryong Mud Festival, Japan's Morioka Sansa Odori Festival, and Thailand's Songkran Festival were selected as the winners. Boryong Mud Festival, which drew over 1.8 million visitors from around the world last year, received the award for 2nd year in a row.
The Mud Festival's selling point is that it is a lively and animated festival. I think we were selected as a winner again because people can feel pleasure at the festival.
Because the Songkran Festival is one of the most important festivals for Thai people. It's not just only the joyful festival, but also like the family gathering in once a year. So it's mixed between the warmth of the family gathering and also the fun festival of the water splashing.
The winning festivals were chosen for contributing to regional development and the economy. Organizers hope the awards will spur local festivals to grow to become global festivals in the future. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
The South Korean government put into effect emergency measures nationwide since this morning to tackle fine dust. This is the first time they've been implemented since a new anti-pollution act took effect last week. Cha Sang-mi zooms in on the actions that were taken.
The air is terrible again here in South Korea. The entire nation except Jeju Island is under the emergency fine dust reduction measures for the first time since the special act on fine dust reduction and management came into force a week ago. The act bans old diesel vehicles over 2.5 tons from all roads when fine dust levels exceed 50 micrograms per cubic meter for 2 consecutive days. The level of pollution in Seoul is particularly high, over 75 micrograms, prompting the city to issue its own emergency alert. Air quality forecasters say the special act will help get rid of some of the dust, especially starting in June, when another provision of the act will take effect, imposing driving restrictions on everyone, not just civil servants.
The special act includes measures that will reduce the ultra-fine dust. The measures are being expanded from just government workers to everyone, so that will help reduce the pollution significantly.
Forecasters expect the fine dust to stick around through the weekend and beyond, and they've urged people to stay indoors and wear a mask with a filter if heading outside. Also under the act, cities can also cancel school or reduce class times when dust levels are too high. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle back at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, I hear the horrible air pollution we endured today. It's going to get even worse.
Daniel, unfortunately, radars show that smog is expected to accumulate on top of the high concentrations of ultrafine dust that we already have. And the emergency measures were activated early today, will continue tomorrow, so I advise you to plan your weekend with plenty of indoor activities. And despite the haze, temperatures are trending upwards. Seems like Northeast Asian countries will finish off the season with some temperatures above the average readings. And Saturday morning in Seoul will be above freezing point, but Gwangju and Daegu will be a little bit colder. And the daily highs will range in the low to mid-teens tomorrow, Seoul topping out to 12 degrees. In Vietnam, where preparations are underway for the second North Korea-US summit, there will be several rounds of rain and isolated thunderstorms this weekend, with more storms in the forecast for next week. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
This is where we have to wrap things up. Thanks for watching. Have an incredible weekend.